There is one document y'all can pull up in roughly 5 minutes that for a significant number of folks over 65 leads directly to a larger Social Security check every single month for the rest of their life. Not a one-time payment, not a temporary adjustment, a permanent locked-in increase in the deposit that lands in your account month after month after month. And the reason most people never pocket that additional money is not that they failed to qualify. It is that no one ever gave them the heads up this document existed or broke down the one specific thing to hunt for inside it once they crack it open. And yeah, that is the document I am talking about in this video. The one most folks have never filed. The one that could be sitting between you and a bigger check right now. So if you are ready to actually do something about it today, keep watching, because I am breaking down exactly what it is, where to get it, and what to look for inside it that changes your monthly payment for good. Now, real quick, if this channel has been putting money back in your pocket and keeping you in the know on this kind of stuff, go ahead and smash that like button right now. It helps more folks just like you find this video when they need it most. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting on? Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. The people who are already subscribed, they are already ahead of you. They are getting this information the moment it drops, not days later. Do not be the last one to the party. Now, let us get into it. My name is Robert James. I have spent over a decade digging into retirement benefits, Social Security rules, and the financial stuff that directly affects seniors every single year. And the pattern I keep running into, the one that honestly gets under my skin, is hardworking, honest folks receiving less than they earned every single month because of a number sitting on a government record that nobody ever asked them to verify. I am going to make sure that does not happen to you. So let me start with what this document actually is, because once that clicks, everything else falls right into place. The document is your Social Security statement. It does not cost you a dime. It lives inside an online account called My Social Security on the official government website, ssa.gov. If you have never set one up, the whole process takes roughly 5 minutes. And once you're logged in, your statement is right there waiting on you. Inside that statement is something the vast majority of people have genuinely never laid eyes on in their entire lives: your complete earnings history. Every single year you ever worked and paid into Social Security, going all the way back to your very first gig. Could be from back when you were a teenager, stocking shelves, washing dishes, or hauling boxes somewhere. Every year, listed out with a dollar figure sitting right next to it. Now, here is why that earnings history is the whole enchilada, and I really want you to soak this in because it is the backbone of everything that follows. Most folks assume Social Security just peaks at their most recent years of work or takes some kind of rough average of what they made over time. That is not how this system operates, not even close. What Social Security actually does is this. They identify your 35 highest earning years. They adjust each one of those years to account for inflation. They average all 35 together, and then they run that average through a specific formula to produce your monthly payment. So that 35-year average, that right there is everything. It is the single most critical number in your entire Social Security calculation. Your whole check is built from it. Let me make that concrete for a second. Picture one of those 35 years. A year when you were grinding full-time and bringing home solid money, showing up on the record as a 0, or as half of what you actually earned. That messed up number gets tossed into the mix with all the others and drags your entire average straight into the dirt. And since your payment is calculated directly off that average, one bad year is quietly shrinking every check you will ever receive. It is like one failing grade tanking a lifetime GPA, except this GPA determines how much bread you have got to live on. That is why folks who get even a single year corrected frequently see a meaningful jump. They are not getting a bonus. They are finally getting the payment they always deserved. And the only place anywhere on earth where you can actually see the raw year-by-year figures behind that number, the real data going back decades, is that statement. Your payment is calculated from those numbers, but you never get to see those numbers unless you open this document. Think about that for a second. the most important financial figure in your entire retirement, built from information you have never been shown and that nobody has ever asked you to confirm. So why does simply reviewing your statement lead to a larger check for so many people? Here is the real deal. Every one of those numbers came from payroll reports that your employer submitted across your entire working life. Decades of reports from every position you ever held. And sometimes those reports had mistakes baked right into them. A year where your employer punched in the wrong figure. A year where the recorded amount is way lower than what your actual pay stub showed. A year that shows up as a flat zero, when you know good and well you were clocking in every single day during that entire stretch. And each one of those slip-ups pulls your 35-year average lower, which means your monthly payment, the one you are living on right now, is smaller than it is supposed to be, and not by chump change either. According to the Social Security Administration's own data, a single year of missing or messed up earnings can knock roughly $100 off your monthly benefit. Let that marinate for a second. One wrong year, $100 a month. That is $1,200 a year gone. And across a 20-year retirement, that one bad year quietly costs you somewhere around $24,000. $24,000 from a single mistake on a single line you never even knew was there. And if 2 or 3 years on your record are off, you multiply that figure right on out. Here is the part that ought to light a fire under you. The Social Security Administration does not correct these errors on your behalf. There is no automatic review running in the background, no alert system, no letter dropping in your mailbox saying, "Hey, we think your record might have a problem." The data goes in, your payment gets calculated from it, and unless you personally open that statement and compare it against your own recollection and your own records, that error just sits there quietly for years, nickeling and diming your check the whole time. The money is not coming to find you. You have got to be the one to go find it. Now, you might be wondering whether you are actually someone who could have one of these errors on your record. Let me tell you exactly who is most likely to have money sitting there uncollected right now. Because if you recognize yourself in this list, you need to go check this week. No dawdling, no putting it off. First, anyone who worked for a small business, particularly during the 1980s and 1990s. During that era, a whole lot of payroll was handled manually, an owner sitting down with a paper ledger, doing the books themselves at the end of the week. Honest mistakes in those handwritten reports were way more common back then than anything we see today. If you spent years working for a neighborhood shop, a family-run operation, or any place where payroll was not going through a proper HR or accounting department, your record is exactly the kind that tends to have errors hiding in it. Let me give you a real picture of what this actually looks like. A man I will call Gerald spent 4 solid years in the early 90s working for a small painting company. Good, steady gig, decent pay. Years later, his daughter finally convinces him to sit down and pull up his Social Security statement. He goes through those 4 years, and something ain't adding up. The earnings on record are barely 55 cents on the dollar compared to what he actually took home. The owner had been processing payroll by hand and submitting wrong figures year after year without realizing it. Gerald rounded up his old tax returns, filed a correction, and his monthly benefit went up by more than $285 for the rest of his life. Money that had been sitting there, miscalculated for nearly 30 years. And the only thing that unlocked it was Gerald finally opening that document and reading one specific section. Second, anyone who has ever been self-employed. Freelancers, independent contractors, folks who ran their own hustle. Anyone who worked for themselves and paid self-employment tax. The way those earnings get reported leaves a whole lot of room for a year to be recorded at the wrong amount or to not show up at all. If you ever worked for yourself, even just for a handful of years, examine those years extra carefully when you open your statement. Third, anyone who changed employers frequently. Every single time you started a new gig, that was another opportunity for someone in that payroll department to mistype your information, fumble your Social Security number, or accidentally send your wages somewhere they did not belong. The more jobs you held throughout your career, the more chances there were for something to go sideways. And transition years, the year you bounced from one employer to the next, are where errors tend to concentrate the heaviest. Check those years with extra attention. Fourth, and this one is a biggie that gets consistently overlooked, women who changed their last name after a marriage or a divorce and never got it properly updated with Social Security. Here is what goes down in that situation. If the name your employer submitted does not match the name on file with Social Security, those earnings can fail to attach to your record entirely. They just float around inside the system, credited to nobody. Real work, real paychecks, money you earn through your own grind, simply not counted toward your payment. Let me tell you about a woman I will call Patricia. Patricia married young, took her husband's last name, and worked under that name for close to 15 years. Later in life, she divorced, changed her name back, and kept right on working. Never gave it much thought. Decades later, when she finally pulled her statement, there was a whole stretch of years in the middle of her career where the earnings figures were way lower than she remembered, and a couple of years that were basically blank. What had happened was straightforward and deeply unfair. During those name transitions, some of her earnings had been reported under a name that no longer matched her Social Security file. That money had been floating inside the system, credited to no one, for over 20 years. Real paychecks, just sitting there uncounted, dragging her payment down the whole time. When she brought in her old tax returns and got the record fixed, her benefit increased meaningfully for the rest of her life. If you are a woman who changed your name, even just once during your working years, I am speaking directly to you right now. Do not sleep on this. You may be owed more than anyone else watching this video. Now, there is one more element inside that statement that tends to surprise folks, and it can carry some serious value. If you have got fewer than 35 years of earnings on record, and a whole lot of people do because they took time off to raise kids, go back to school, care for an aging parent, or held jobs that were not covered by Social Security, then the system does something you really need to understand. To fill out all 35 years, it plugs every one of those empty slots with a flat zero. And those zeros feed directly into your average and drag your payment down considerably. But here is where the opportunity is hiding. Sometimes those years are not actually empty. Sometimes you genuinely were working during that stretch, and the earnings just never got recorded correctly. Tracking down even one real year of work that is sitting on your record as a zero and getting it corrected can add anywhere from $50 to $150 per month to your payment. Find 2 or 3 years like that, and now you are talking about a real deal raise that follows you for the rest of your life. Let me give you exactly what to do, broken all the way down step by step. Write this down, or come back and rewatch this section. But before you even get to the steps, go round up anything that reflects what you actually earned throughout your working years. Old W-2 forms, old tax returns, old pay stubs, even a solid memory of which years you held which positions. Get everything into one folder before you sit down to do this. The more documentation you have on hand, the stronger your case is going to be. And if there is a box of old financial paperwork sitting in a closet you have been meaning to pitch, do not touch that box until after you have gone through this process. That box could be worth thousands of dollars to you. Step 1. Go to ssa.gov and create your My Social Security account if you do not already have one set up. Completely free, official government site, takes roughly 5 minutes. One important heads up, only use the genuine ssa.gov address. Do not click on some ad or a sketchy link in an email claiming to take you there. Type it in yourself. Step 2. Open your statement and navigate to the Earnings History section. You will find a list of every year, going all the way back to your very first job, with a dollar figure sitting right next to each one. Step 3, and this is the step that actually gets you the money. Compare those numbers year by year against your own personal records, your old W-2 forms, old tax returns, old pay stubs, whatever documentation you held onto. You were specifically hunting for 3 things: years where the figure is noticeably lower than what you genuinely earned, years that show a 0 when you know you were on the clock, and years that are missing from the list entirely. pay the closest attention to your highest earning years, because an error in a big year does way more damage to your check than an error in a smaller one. Step 4. If you find something that does not line up, the form you need is called a Request for Correction of Earnings Record, and it comes directly from Social Security. The form number is SSA 7008. You can download it straight from ssa.gov, pick one up at your local Social Security office, or call 1-800-772-12131 and ask them to drop one in the mail to you. You submit it along with documentation proving what you actually earned. The strongest supporting evidence you can have is your original W-2 forms. But here is something most people have absolutely no clue about. Even if you pitched all your old paperwork years ago, Social Security itself can retrieve copies of your W-2 forms going all the way back to 1978 at absolutely no charge when the purpose is correcting your earnings record. And there is a free IRS form called Form 4506T that pulls your wage and income transcript directly from the IRS database, also accepted by the SSA as evidence. So a missing shoebox of old tax documents is not a valid reason to leave this money sitting on the table. Now, here is where a whole lot of people trip up, so pay close attention. Sign the form in ink before you mail it. Your actual handwritten signature, not a typed name. An unsigned form gets treated by the SSA as if it was never filed at all, which means if a deadline passes while your unsigned form is sitting in a return pile, that correction window shuts on you permanently. Before you seal that envelope, open it back up and confirm your signature is right there on that line. This one detail has ended legitimate correction claims that would have meant hundreds of dollars more every month for the rest of somebody's life. Do not let that be you. Never send original documents. Always send copies and hang on to every original yourself. If you hand deliver in person, ask the SSA staff to photocopy your supporting docs right there on the spot and hand your originals back before you walk out the door. Mail everything by certified mail with return receipt requested. Write down the tracking number before you seal the envelope and stash it somewhere safe. That number is your proof of when the SSA received your submission. Step 5. Be patient, but stay on it. Social Security typically works through these corrections within roughly 10 to 90 days. Once it is done, your benefit gets recalculated and the higher amount starts showing up in your payments going forward. And here is something worth knowing. Mistakes from 10, 20, even 30 years back can still be corrected when you have the right documentation to back up your case. Never assume that because something happened a long time ago, it is too late to fix it. If you have the proof, the correction is worth going after. Correcting an error is the biggest opportunity for most folks watching this, but I promised you more than just that, because not everyone has an error to fix. So let me run through a few more legit ways to bump up your monthly payment, and every single one of them starts the same way, by opening that document and actually understanding what it is telling you. The first one applies to just about everyone and connects right back to those zeros. If your record still has 0 years sitting among your top 35, you have a shot to knock them out. Every additional year you work, even part-time, even later in life, has the potential to replace one of those zeros with a real number. Because the formula draws from your 35 highest years, one extra productive year can push a 0 or a tiny early career amount right out of the calculation and lift your average. For some people, one additional year of work is worth considerably more to their monthly payment than they ever imagined. Second, the timing of when you claim matters enormously, and your statement shows you exactly what you need to understand this. If you have not started collecting yet, every year you hold off past your full retirement age bumps your payment by roughly 8%, all the way up to age 70. That is a guaranteed growth rate you simply cannot find anywhere else. Your statement lays out those projections so you can see precisely what waiting is worth in your specific situation. That is real money on the table for folks who have the flexibility to wait. Third, if you are married, divorced after a lengthy marriage, or widowed, there may be a bigger benefit available to you than the one you are currently pulling in based on your own record alone. A spouse may be eligible to claim up to half of the higher earner's benefit amount. A widow or widower gets to keep whichever check is bigger, their own or their late spouse's full benefit. People leave staggering amounts of money behind here simply because they assume the payment they are already getting is the only one available to them. It is absolutely worth digging into. Call 1-800-772-1213 and ask them to run a comparison. It is free, it takes one phone call, and it has put meaningful money in the pockets of people who had no idea they qualified for more. Now, I understand some of y'all are hearing all of this and thinking, I am not comfortable with computers. I would not even know where to start with setting up an account online. I hear you completely, and I do not want that to be the thing that costs you thousands of dollars across your retirement. So here is what you can do. You do not have to handle any of this online. You do not have to do it by yourself at all. You can call Social Security directly at 1-800-772-1213 and ask them to mail you a copy of your earnings statement and help you walk through your record. You can walk into your nearest Social Security office in person, take a seat with a real staff member, and have them pull everything up right there with you. Or you can ask a son, a daughter, a grandkid, or a trusted friend who is comfortable on the internet to sit down with you for one afternoon and go through the whole thing together. There is no shame in asking for help. The only real mistake is letting the process feel overwhelming and leaving the money sitting there uncollected. The benefit belongs to you, no matter how you go about getting to it. Let me offer one serious word of caution before we wrap up, because wherever there is money owed to seniors, somebody is going to show up looking to swoop in and take a cut of it. You should never have to pay anyone a dime to do any of this. Not a flat fee, not a percentage of your recovery, nothing. Checking your statement and submitting a correction is a completely free process that you handle directly with Social Security. If you ever get hit with a phone call, an email, or an ad from some outfit calling themselves a benefits recovery specialist or a retirement payment audit company, promising to chase down your Social Security increase in exchange for a fee, end that call. Delete that email. All they plan to do is follow the exact same free steps I just walked you through, and then pocket a chunk of what is rightfully yours. Do not let these clowns get over on you. The SSA will never reach out to you out of nowhere about a potential increase. They are not calling, they are not emailing. The only resource you need is the real SSA.gov. And for additional help, turn to a trusted family member or a legitimate advisor, not someone working on commission. Let me bring everything back to the central point, because I want you to genuinely act on this, not just nod along and move on. Your Social Security payment is built from decades of earnings data. If even one line of it is wrong, your check is smaller than it ought to be, and it stays that way every single month until you track down that problem and fix it. Nobody is coming to find that error on your behalf. But the document that lets you check it yourself is free, sitting inside your account at ssa.gov right this second, 5 minutes away from you right now. Most people spend more time picking apart a grocery store receipt than they ever spend looking at the one record that determines their income for the rest of their lives. Do not be counted among them. So today, take this one action. Go to ssa.gov, open your statement, read through your earnings history one line at a time, and if anything does not match what you know you actually earned, submit the correction. That is the whole process. That is how a free document becomes a bigger monthly check. And if this video was valuable to you, do me a solid. Share it with one person you care about who is on Social Security or getting close to that age, especially anyone who is self-employed, worked for a small business, or has ever changed their name. Those are the folks most likely to be owed more money and least likely to know it exists. The government is not going to make that call for them, but you absolutely can. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so the next video finds you when it drops. I will see you in the next one.